we are going to be discussing Turning Customers into Evangelists, a Tactical Guide for E-Commerce. So we're addressing e-commerce businesses, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, marketers, owners, anyone who is in the e-com industry or who even wants to be in the e-commerce industry. And if you're familiar with e-commerce, which I have some assumption that you are, you know, as cliche as it sounds, that the only constant is change. And right now, there's something of a sea change in terms of marketing tactics and technology, even, which leads to a complete reimagining of strategy. I mean, not only are we dealing with global issues like a pandemic, but we're also dealing with, new privacy restrictions and other elements of marketing that have a huge bearing on how successful an e-commerce business can be, given the tactics, given the technology, which leads us to, okay, we need to rethink strategy here. And I'm excited about this webinar, particularly because this is where Raul's insight and experience really come through. I'm excited about what we're going to discover here, and I'm particularly looking forward to the fact that we are going to basically hand you a tactical guide for understanding how marketing is going to work in this day and age. Although we're not taking live questions during this webinar, we will be sharing our email addresses on the screen in just a moment. You'll have my email address, of course, in the invitation that we sent you for the webinar, and you're welcome to send us any questions or follow-up thoughts. If we don't respond or don't respond right away, forgive us, but based on the feedback that we do collect in your emails, we'll probably type up an FAQ, perhaps, maybe a blog post that we can publish on Referral Candy's website or GetResponse's blog to address any of those detailed questions, because we know that this is a vast topic, and there's likely a lot more that we could discover. We're going to be here for about 30 minutes. And before we get into our subject matter, some quick introductions. I'll go first. My name is Daniel Threlfall, coming to you from South Carolina in the United States. I work in partnerships at GetResponse. We're a full stack marketing software industry. My background is in e-commerce. I was formerly at Neil Patel Digital, leading marketing efforts, and then I worked at Shopify as a marketing lead in their Berlin, Germany office. My nerdy obsessions are all things marketing, particularly content marketing, referral marketing, SEO, and a bit of marketing psychology here. So, Raul, over to you. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. First of all, very, very happy to be here. So yeah, my name is Raul. I am the chief advocate here at Referral Candy. I'm also coming to you live from Spain here. So we're pretty much covering both sides of the Atlantic in this webinar. So yeah, I've been working at Referral Candy for the past almost 5 years, mostly in partnerships. And more recently, I've also taken this kind of like advocacy role at the company to talk about referral marketing, talking about word of mouth and what it can do for e-commerce businesses, especially as you mentioned earlier, Daniel, in terms of how much things are changing, and especially in the past year and a half, and how referral marketing, alongside with word of mouth in general, with loyalty, customer retention, how that plays an even more important role in the development of pretty much any e-commerce business these days. So yeah, pretty excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Raul, and thank you for sort of prefacing some of those topics. And as Raul mentioned, we're gonna dive into those in some detail, and we're gonna do so in sort of a fireside chat format. Instead of death by slides, we're just going to bring up some of the most salient points to walk through, and I'll go ahead and introduce the first one. It involves a lot of the it's not a negative question necessarily, but we do want to be upfront about the threats and barriers that face e-commerce entrepreneurs right now. So, Raul, can you bring that up and sort of trace out what are some of those threats and barriers to e-commerce entrepreneurs right now?
So I would say that the main one right now, it's based on the amount of competition that has joined the e-commerce space. It's a trend that has been happening for the past, for the past years, at least since I started working in e-commerce in 2016. Every single year we've been beating records in terms of new e-commerce sales, overall kind of global sales, new e-commerce stores joining some of the most kind of like common platforms, Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce. So there's more and more competition, but then 2020 came along and that just changed the entire thing, put it upside down. We ended up having one of the craziest stats of 2020, in my opinion, was the fact that Shopify was registering Black Friday and Cyber Monday traffic in April, which is it's a time of the year that obviously e-commerce technology companies like ourselves and like Shopify, we prepare throughout the year to expect such high volumes of traffic. And the fact that we were beating those numbers back in April 2020, that kind of tells you how everything was going to develop for the rest of the year, and it continues to grow in 2021. And so competition, again, there's a lot more companies competing for the same target audience, and that has a pretty direct translation into ad costs. So Facebook, has been acquiring for the past several years. Have been acquiring 1 million active advertisers every single year. So that adds a lot more advertisers that are competing for the same target market as you. So you need to stand out or spend more money. And that's definitely a barrier that a lot of e-commerce merchants are facing, especially those that are trying to break into markets that are already kind of saturated. Even if they have a very competitive edge or a competitive product, or a compelling brand, the fact that they need to get in front of those first customers, it gets really, really hard. I remember when I started working in e-commerce in 2016, there were lots of e-commerce courses that would tell you how to get started with Facebook ads with $50, $100. Those days are long gone. That's nowhere to be found these days. And yeah, the fact that even during the pandemic, the online ad spend kept growing. I think it was like 49% last year compared to 2019, and I think this year is expected to grow by another 27%. So, it's just it's really, really difficult to get those first customers and get those first orders out of the way and start acquiring customers. So I would say that's pretty much the number one threat at the moment. We can also talk about how much marketplaces are coming into play and how they're competing with direct brands. But yeah, that's kind of like a separate topic. But yeah, in the D2C world, competition is just getting very, really fierce.
Yeah, I totally want to echo that, because something that I've observed as a trend in e-com, and especially in the retail industry, D2C and B2C, is that there is just so much enormous cost required for any type of advertising, whether you're doing paid social or even anything with AdWords. The amount that you're going to bid for any given keyword is almost ridiculous.
Mhm.
And for e-commerce entrepreneurs, many of whom are bootstrapping their businesses, that becomes a very difficult feat to pull off, especially in the introductory days. Because whereas some of these SaaS businesses are getting major funding and they have angels and VCs, that's not quite as common in the e-commerce industry. So I've heard this complaint many times, is that advertising is just too damn expensive.
Yep.
And it's really unsustainable to rely on advertising alone as your primary growth channel. So we have to look at alternate methods, and gratefully there are alternate methods. So don't let the fact that advertising is expensive discourage you from putting your all into e-commerce, because there are profits to be made. There is a lot of revenue to be had, and there are customers to acquire, even though the competition, as Raul so poignantly put it, is very intense right now. So let's get into some of that. Let's talk about customer acquisition, like the processes, the techniques, the tension too between customer acquisition and then, once you have that customer retention.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if you're getting started, you need to acquire customers, and again, you might have to incur into some of these costs to get your first ads on Facebook or Instagram or Google. Obviously, again, these platforms are getting more and more specialized, so I think it's even more kind of mandatory to go with somebody that actually knows how to navigate the space. I don't think there's really that much time for experiments. And these days, it's probably better to just go with somebody that kind of knows how to get those first steps out of the way. But I think the most important thing, or the most important change that I've seen in the past few years, and especially again after 2020, is that brands are starting to realize that customer retention, it's not just something that's nice to have, but something that it's crucial for the life of the business. I mean, when you look at stats in terms of how much what increase in profit you can get just by increasing your customer retention just by a few percentage points. It's ridiculous. I mean, you can increase your profits by at least 25% with just a 5% increase in customer retention. So that has a direct bottom line increase in your business. I mean, we're talking about financials, talking about money. It doesn't get any more real than that. So having that strategy from the very beginning of what are you going to do with those customers after they leave your checkout, it's extremely important. And again, it doesn't have to be, I don't want to sound like I'm biased talking about referral marketing. It can be anything that's going to engage them with your brand. So whether it is to subscribe them to content that you're going to send them periodically to educate them about some particular topics, or whether it is to ask them for to leave a review, or to maybe generate some user generated content, whatever it is, or to leave generate a referral, recommend a friend to the store. Anything along those lines, anything that's going to create a kind of like a more personal connection between you and the customer, that's something that needs to start pretty much from the very first touch point that you have with a potential customer. Because again, down the line, that's going to end up paying off. Customers that are loyal to your brand are going to end up spending more. And the bottom line is going to be you're going to get a lot more profit from those customers, rather than if you have kind of like a company focus on just acquiring new customer. And another thing that I wanted to mention in terms of customer retention is that when we think about customer retention, we typically think of kind of like marketing strategies that you can implement to retain those customers. And as I mentioned earlier, it could be a referral program, it could be a loyalty program or review system, whatever it is. But it also comes down to the quality of your product, what you're selling, making sure that your customers actually like and enjoy the product that they've bought from you. And also the fact that you have kind of like an overall customer obsession philosophy at your company. So if anything goes wrong, your customer support team is going to be there to step in and solve any problem that your customers are facing. Make sure that again your customers are just satisfied with the purchase and with the whole process in general. Make it easier for them to navigate your store and buy from you. So that's kind of a given. I feel like it's a must if you want to retain those customers, and all these marketing tactics kind of go on top of that. But the basics have to be there.
Yeah, that's so good. Ro, a couple of things that you said, I just want to bounce back real quick, because there are a few things that I wanted to assert sort of as retention strategies that are prior to retention, and that is your product has to be kick-ass. I mean, from the very beginning, there needs to be a highly product-centric exclamation point basically to your brand. That's how you build identity, right? Without a high quality product, you're destined to fail.
Yep.
The second thing is retention needs to be built into the entire ethos of the company. So you talk about revenues and goals, et cetera, but really what needs to be baked in to the foundation of your strategy is retention. Retention is just as important, if not more so. Like it's a chicken and egg thing, but then customer acquisition. And then the third thing, well, from a tactical standpoint, what are some ways that you can encourage retention? I'll walk through one of those, but I do want to just point out that a subscription program is probably the primary way that retention works. Of course, subscription has its risks, and it's not necessarily the solution for every product. But if you have a way to create a subscription service, then by all means do it. And you can get creative with this too. I mean, for example, if we get into examples of e-commerce businesses that are doing a great job, I talk about MeUndies, right? They sell underwear, right? But you can subscribe and get your underwear shipped to you in a pretty little box every month. Okay, so there's an example of creative subscription services that do a great job of retaining customers for the long term. And then the other tactical things that you can do from a retention standpoint is once you have that contact, don't lose it. Engage them as much as you possibly can. And with that engagement, it needs to be highly personalized. So whether you're serving retargeting on social media or whether you're just emailing them, make sure you embed personalization into every process of your re-engagement with them, because that is one of the primary means that you can have higher engagement rates from existing customers. So great point there, Raul. Thanks for pointing that out.
I would add something to that. Actually, I particularly love the example of the subscription, because I feel like that's the the ideal scenario of a loyal customer. It's somebody that's just so in love with your brand that it's willing to just have their credit card information put in, and then just receive a package every month without having to really think about the fact that they've made an order. They just want to receive it. And so, some you were mentioning kind of like different examples of how brands can get creative to turn subscriptions into one of their options, which again, I totally agree. I think if you can figure out a way to make your products at least as an optional way to make it a subscription, that can be a killer for your bottom line. And there's a couple examples that I particularly like. These are both referral candy customers, but what they're doing, especially in the industries that they operate, I think is just genius. So we have a customer that's called A Box of Stories, and they sell books. And obviously, there's a lot of competition in the book selling space with Amazon and Book Depository. And so what they do is that they send you a subscription box with surprise books every single month, and based on what they think you're going to like, you fill out a questionnaire, and then they send you this box with books that they think that might kind of fit the type of books that you read. And then there's another one that's called Woven that I've actually been their customer. When I'm in the US, I always subscribe to them because they sell T-shirts. And again, it's a product that you can get from lots of different brands. There's a lot of competition out there, but what they do is that they design one different T-shirt every single month. They ship it, and then they don't make it again. So you have kind of like a unique item every single month to your doorstep. And again, it's just kind of like feels like you're having something unique. So getting creative in those kind of ways, if you can figure out something along those lines, that's a killer. And I feel like the surprise angle, it's something that a lot of brands can probably think about to turn the product into something along these lines.
Boom. I have to remark on that for a couple of reasons. And the first is that innovation and creativity are essential when we're talking about marketing, especially for brands that are in the retail industry who are serving up something that could be rather boring, right? Socks, underwear, clothing, shoes, t-shirts, etc. That's where the creativity really has to come to the fore. So for retaining a customer, well, like Raul said, he's going to subscribe to the service. And I do the same thing. I'm a customer of a t-shirt company based in Stockholm, Sweden. And the reason why I'm going to continue to be a customer is because every month they send me a t-shirt in my size. I don't know what the t-shirt's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's going to say, but I can't wait. It's like the next season of my favorite show is coming out. I want to see the next episode. I want to see what that next t-shirt is. And whether you use that as an element of surprise, or whether you use what MeUndies does, every season they have a new pattern, right? And they theme it, and you can get matching pairs for his and hers, or you can get different types of attire. But it's based on this one style, right? So you have an evolving style that comes through every season, and that keeps people engaged, and that keeps people excited. So definitely, to keep customers engaged, creativity is essential, and that's also where some of the fun is involved. You can come up with innovative ideas. And I do want to make a remark about that when we get to it. But when it comes to actually engaging with these customers from a customer acquisition and the retention standpoint, is you also have to be innovative in the platforms in which you engage them on. This is marketing 101, but find where those customers are. Find where they are most active socially, and where they are using their own platform to have a voice to their network, and get on those platforms, engage the heck out of them, and you're sure to have a referral program that is going to kick ass. So I want to get into some of that stuff, because that's where some really powerful and I think probably even business changing ideas can come. Raul, talk to us about how brands can turn customers into evangelists.
So the first thing, actually, I had something already in mind, but I really liked what you mentioned about talking to your customers in the right channel. So I want to just dig into that real quick. That's so important. And again, it doesn't have to be, you can get creative on that too. We have several examples of companies that were competing either in very competitive industries. Let's say we have a customer in the toy space, and there's massive competition there. They realized that they were selling toys for kids, but the actual customer were moms. So instead of running ad campaigns on social media or which they did, but also on on Google, they actually went and looked for Facebook groups where moms will hang out and start connecting with them directly, and like in a very kind of like educational way, not necessarily not too pushy, not too promotional, but like trying to get those first customers to try the product so they can do the marketing themselves after that. That's one of the, so this customer is called Riff Raff and Co. And that's actually how they grew. And that was kind of like the first steps that made them realize that they could easily run a referral program, because they had all these moms that were really excited about the products that they had bought from them, and they just wanted to spread the word, and tell other moms about the purchases they made. So that's one example that I thought it was that was genius, because they kind of like thought outside of the box, and they said, let's just talk to moms directly. We have another customer that's been with us for a long time, that's called Critical Pass, and they sell, it's like a very specific product. They sell flashcards for bar students, so people that are taking the bar exam in the US. And they realized that the best channel for them were Reddit forums, where all these students will hang out and talk about what they were studying, or like share experiences or whatever. So those examples, kind of like guerrilla marketing, I personally love them, because they show how creative founders can get, and that can really, and again, once you create kind of like a community of people that are familiar with your product, they buy your product and they love it, again, that's a must. And if that takes place, and you happen to have a product that you're either selling in a very kind of like specific or fun way, like the examples that we were mentioning before. You were talking about MeUndies, and I could tell that you were having fun talking about the brand, and you were excited to tell me about the fact that you're getting it every month, and they change kind of like different patterns every season. That's exactly the example of customer that brands want to have, and they did it by turning a boring product into something kind of like this element of surprise, something fun, that it's going to make it even interesting to talk to your friends and family about it. Or if you buy socks and then somebody points it out, or where do you get those socks, they're not going to say, oh, I got them online. They're going to tell you the full story. They're going to tell you what the brand is about, what they do every month, the fact that you might get like a specific pair that they never make again. That kind of like element of creativity, and kind of like turning things around. And the reality is that we love talking about things that we do, and online shopping, it's part of our daily lives. So if you can make shopping more fun, and more interesting, and kind of like make your customers feel like it's Christmas every single time they get a box from you, that's going to be a killer. And that's providing that type of service is going to turn them into evangelists pretty much right away. If you can create a referral program on top of that to kind of like encourage them to keep referring, but the base, it's there. It's that excitement to talk about the product that they had just bought.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to also platforms and ways in which, well, areas, communities in which to engage your audience. The Reddit example for law students was right on. And there's so many specific ways that you can engage your audiences on any given channel. So Reddit is one, area, but then you have subreddits of subreddits of subreddits, in which you get into really very, very, very targeted audiences.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing can be had on a platform like TikTok, for example, because everyone's TikTok feed is going to be curated based on what they're watching and what interests they have. And TikTok's algorithm is highly sophisticated. So when you are served something sponsored, it needs to be very relevant to what that particular prospect is already viewing in their TikTok feed. So you need to be in tune with A, where your customers are, and then B, what they're going to be most interested in. So to carry on the example of TikTok, if their TikToks are highly educational, for example, somebody's taking the full 2 minutes to explain a theory or a historical factoid, then your sponsored placement needs to have the same flavor. But on the other hand, if the TikTok is music oriented and it's somebody, I don't know, beatboxing or doing a loop, then you need to have something that's musical oriented. On the other hand, if the TikTok curation of this particular prospect is something more on the humor side of things, then you make sure you got to be funny. So even in those sub communities, there needs to be highly relevant types of placements when you're engaging people. But they will. I mean, you nail it, and they will actually come, and they'll come again. And there's a familiarity bias. Once you serve that ad or you serve that sponsored placement a handful of times, eventually you'll be able to attract that customer.
Yeah, and
So
you also made a point earlier on personalization, and you just kind of and now you talked again about providing educational content, and I think that personalization, that's something that a lot of brands are kind of overseeing, in my opinion, in the sense that they uh, they don't communicate with their customers in a non-promotional way
mhm,
enough. I mean, I keep seeing lots of examples of brands that you might have already made a purchase from them, and I'm sure a lot of viewers can relate to this. You might have made a purchase from one particular brand, and they keep targeting you with the same ad that used them to get you to make that first purchase, but you don't need that ad anymore. You need something else. You need something that's going to retain you. And again, whether it's educational content or funny content or whatever it is, but just make sure that you're staying top of mind without necessarily having to push that discount or that promotion that you offer in the first place.
yeah, that's a good point. I do want to take a few minutes here to talk about any brands in particular, Raul, that you've seen that do a great job of turning their customers into evangelists. I've sort of, tipped my hand, as it were, discussing MeUndies and the success that they've had in turning their customers into just rapid evangelists for the brand. What about you? And what are some customers that or some companies that you've seen really proselytize their customers to such an extent that they are spreading the good news to their friends?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's one example. They're not our customers, but it's a brand that everybody knows, which is Patagonia. That have been able to turn their customers into advocates in a very non-traditional way, I would say. They've always been. I mean, they've always been kind of political in a way. They've always had kind of like their ideology, kind of figure it out as a company mission. You could tell kind of like what kind of causes and they were supporting. But especially during 2020, they got really political, and especially because of the elections in the U.S. And you could be be in favor of them or against them, but they made that decision of going political, which they knew that it could potentially alienate part of their customer base and decide, I'm never buying from you again. But they made that decision, and it turned out well for them. They actually, I think they had a record sales last year. That was a way of kind of like showing their customer base, look, we care about more than just selling, because there's a lot of brands that are using kind of like this fake activism to
Mhm.
say, hey, look, we're X, whatever, conscious about something. But they actually did it. They actually like took a stand, and they took the risk of again, potentially alienating and losing some customers. So that's one. Again, I'm not telling every brand to get political, but that's one example that I particularly like, because they
I'm
took that
gonna,
risk.
yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on that. It was Patagonia's marketing approach in 2020 that catalyzed me to purchase additional Patagonia products. Um,
Same here.
because it was a
Guilty.
motivating factor, and you do
Mhm.
have to be really careful with cause-related marketing because you have to be prepared. You're going to alienate some customers. You're going to piss some people off, and that's a price that you're going to pay. But it's an investment to be had as well. You're
Mhm.
taking a stand, and you have to be sensitive to the trends. Not that you're going to, go with the wind, as it were, but you're going to analyze, okay, what do we want to be known for, and then how is that going to be reflected on our brands? And one trend right now is Amazon is the enemy. Jeff Bezos. It's illegal to be a billionaire. Why are you doing this? And sometimes when you take a cause-related effort, you're going to have to pick an enemy. Now, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that your marketing is going to be highly negative, but it does mean that you're taking a positive stand that will result in perhaps some negative feedback. So I didn't want to derail that, but I did want to point out that that is a great approach to take, one with caution and one with potential blowback. So,
And especially if it's a real cause that you're supporting, if it's something that
mhm.
you actually believe on as a company, and it's part of your company mission, and potentially even part of the reason why you started the company in the first place, which I know that in Patagonia, it's kind of it's something that they've had always as part of their company mission and vision. Um, But again, it has to be genuine, because it can backfire not only from customers that are against that stand, but also customers that support that stand, and they realize that that's a fake stand that the companies take. I mean, we all remember Pepsi's marketing campaign a few years ago. I think it was like some sort of demonstration with Kendall Jenner, some Kardashian, I forget, and that backfired completely.
Right.
You know, so don't be like Pepsi, be more like Patagonia in a way if you want to. But again, that's an example of a really big company, like bringing it down to more like smaller companies in the e-commerce space. I Some of the examples that I mentioned earlier in terms of the company T-shirt woven, the surprise box, box of stories, that would be another example, because they've been able to actually create communities, like almost kind of like physical communities around their brands, whether it's a forum or a Facebook group, and they've been able to kind of like put their customers together in one place, and again, and like being able to discuss things that are related to the brand, but it's not necessarily about the products, but it's more about what all these customers share, and also share with you as a brand. And another example that I have, it's a company called Threadbeast. They're also in the subscription business. And they so what they do is that they sell, they send you a package of clothes every single month, and with, again, it's kind of surprise. You're going to get something that they think you're going to like based on your interests, and they have a referral program on top of that, and they've been able to turn their customer base into a sales force. Basically, if you go on YouTube and you type Threadbeast, you're gonna see videos and videos and videos of people unboxing their boxes and showing the products they got, and also sharing the referral links there. So they've been able to make it. I mean, they incentivize that, obviously. It's no chance the fact that all these customers are going on YouTube and Instagram and, like, showing the products they got. But they also got to the point they got there because their products were good and they were selling them in an innovative way, and they have that element of surprise. So I feel like we kind of keep circling around the same topics, but it's really that simple in a way. You have a good product, you can position your brand in a different way, and then you make your customers enjoy your purchase. I think those are the three key elements for customer retention and also customer advocacy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to wind it down here, but there's a couple things that we wanted to point out just by way of conclusion. And that is our companies who we're representing here with GetResponse, and GetResponse does provide a lot of these tools that Raul and I have been discussing, involving marketing, any aspect of marketing, whether it is your advertising or your email. And if you're interested in getting engaged and using some of these tactics, 30 days are free if you do join GetResponse. Any thoughts that you want to share about Referral Candy, Raul?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we do is that we allow any brand to set up and run a customer referral program in a very, very easy way. And it's all automated and kind of running on autopilot. So you as a founder, you don't have to worry about making sure that your customers are getting rewarded or anything like that. The way it works is that we give every single one of your customers a referral link. They can share that with their friends. The friends make a purchase, and we send the rewards to the customer that made the recommendation in the first place. Simple as that. And we have an extended 60-day free trial. So if they follow that URL there, they can benefit from that.
Absolutely. And integrations are a crucial part of anybody's e-commerce efforts. So it is important to, I think, point out that both GetResponse and Referral Candy are completely integrated with all the major e-commerce platforms. And if there's an integration for some reason that's missing, if you're using some obscure e-com platform, well, there's always requests that can be made to our development teams to integrate further. But this has been a helpful discussion, Raul. I've learned a lot, and I want to thank each of you for coming, for attending, for listening to us share some of these strategies. If you would like to engage further on this, here are our email addresses. And again, you will receive an email from me after this webinar to provide a follow-up, to provide a link to replay, to share if you want. But you're welcome to email both Raul and myself at any time. We'll do our best to get back with you. And I want to say thank you again for attending. It's been a pleasure to spend this half hour with you. Take care.